Waiting by any second now. We're going to hear from the President of the United States. He's in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
Are you talking about the census?
Yes, the census.
Well, I think that, and I'm not overly involved in that, that's really a legal matter, but I think when you have a census and you're not allowed to talk about whether or not somebody's a citizen or not, that doesn't sound so good to me. Can you imagine you send out a census and you're not allowed to say whether or not a person's an American citizen? In Poland, they'd say they're either Polish or they're not, right? So I don't want to get you into this battle, but it's ridiculous. I think it's totally ridiculous that we would have a census without asking. But the Supreme Court is going to be ruling on it soon. I think when a census goes out, you should find out whether or not, and you have the right to ask whether or not somebody is a citizen of the United States. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, are the U.S. troops ready for deployment in Poland?
Well, we're talking about it. That's one of the reasons that we're here. A lot of money is going to be spent on a facility, a military facility, a great one in a very good location in Poland. And actually, it'll be spread over a little area, but basically one primary facility. We'll see how it works out. We're talking about it right now.
President, do you consider Russia as a threat to Poland and to Europe?
I hope not. I'll tell you what, we're with everybody, and I hope not. I think that Russia will treat Poland with respect, just like the rest of the world is treating. Poland has really built up a great country. You know, they get hurt, unfortunately, too often, right? Too often. They're in the middle of everything, and when bad things happen, it seems that Poland is always the first one that's in there, and it's unfortunate. No, I hope that Russia and Poland and Germany and everybody's going to get along. That's what I want. I want everybody to get along.
What is your initial reaction to the demonstrations in Hong Kong? Is China overplaying its hand here?
Well, they're massive demonstrations. I looked today, and that really is 1 million people. A lot of times people talk about they had 2,000 people, but it was really 1,000 or it was 200. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. But when you look at this demonstration, they said it was 1 million people. That was 1 million people. That was as big a demonstration as I've ever seen. So I hope it all works out for China and for Hong Kong.
Are they sending a message to China with these demonstrations?
I don't know what they're sending. I mean, that's a demonstration that they're having. I understand the reason for the demonstration, but I'm sure they'll be able to work it out. I hope they're going to be able to work it out with China.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr. President, what do you think about the Free SIS initiative of Central and Eastern European countries?
Say it.
Free SIS initiative that was held in Europe.
Well, we're going to be discussing a lot of those elements today.
internal polling as it relates to your ballot?
No, because we have great internal polling. They were fake polls that were released by somebody that it's ridiculous. No, we are winning in every single state that we've polled. We're winning in Texas very big. We're winning in Ohio very big. We're winning in Florida very big. They were fake polls that were either put out by the corrupt media, because much of the media in this country, unfortunately, is corrupt. I have to tell you that, Mr. President. And some of it is excellent, but some is very bad. Those are fake numbers. But you know when you're going to see that? You're going to see that on Election Day. On Election Day, you're going to see. It was the same thing. I had the same thing for a long period of time in 2016. I was getting these terrible poll numbers, and I didn't see it because I'd have tremendous crowds, and my opponent would have almost nobody. And I said, I think we're going to win the state of Michigan. We did. I think we're going to win the state of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and we won them all. And now I have the same stuff. They're giving out phony polls. No, these are polls that we have that nobody saw. We do very little polling because I'm not a huge believer in polling. I think you go out there and you fight, and you don't really need polls. You need ideas more than polls. But we have some internal polling, very little, and it's unbelievably strong. The strongest I've ever been is exactly today.
Some of your advisors say there is concern. Is that inaccurate?
No, they're not advisors. It's fake news. You don't understand what I'm saying. Those advisors don't exist. They don't exist. It's made up by the newspapers. It's fake news.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
the House and Senate committees have subpoena power. How is this going to play out over the next 2 years?
Well, I think what the Democrats are trying to do, because they know they're going to lose the election, so they're going to give this a shot, they're going to just every day they're going to be going more and more after. I don't know if you have this, Mr. President, but we have people that are totally out of control. It's the only way they think they can win the election, so we'll see what happens. But at some point, the Mueller report spoke. They were very disappointed. It said no collusion and no obstruction and no nothing. And in fact, it said we actually rebuffed your friends from Russia, that we actually pushed them back, we rebuffed them. So the Democrats were very unhappy with the Mueller report, so now they're trying to do a do-over or a redo, and we're not doing that. We gave them everything. We were the most transparent presidency in history. We gave them everything. And you and I, we've all had this conversation many times before. There's never been anybody so transparent. Gave them 1.5 million documents. We gave them hundreds of people. I gave them lawyers, which I didn't have to give. I didn't have to give anybody. We gave them everybody. And people that didn't like Donald Trump, 18 Trump haters, 18 Democrats, and they were Trump haters, and they were supporters, in some cases, of Hillary Clinton. They made the decision. And Bob Mueller, no fan of Donald Trump, I'm no fan of his. And Bob Mueller came out with a report that said no collusion, and by the way, and led to no obstruction. So now the Democrats want to try and win an election, so they just keep it going. And I think the American public's not going to stand for it. I'll tell you what the Democrats should be doing. They should be working on the border. They should be working on drug pricing, and they should be working on infrastructure where we could get that done very quickly, but they don't have any time to do anything. And I think it's going to be a tremendous day for us. It's a year and a half now until the election. I think it's going to be a tremendous day for us. Okay.
Mr. President, what do you expect to get out of your meeting with President Xi at the G20? And also, can you update us on the agreement you have with Mexico that you alluded to?
We expect to have a meeting with President Xi. We're doing very well with respect to China. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars, which we never took in before. The tariffs are been, very strong. We have 25% of $250 billion, and tremendous money is flowing into our treasury. China is subsidizing those companies, so our people are not paying for it. If you look, our people are not paying for it. China is subsidizing those companies so that people continue to work. Now, the problem for China is that a lot of companies are leaving China because they don't want to pay the tariffs. But we're doing very well. And I have a feeling that we're going to make a deal with China, because I really don't believe that China wants to continue the problem that they really caused themselves, because we had a deal done. Almost, I would say, all of the tough points were negotiated. They were negotiated, and they were agreed to, and everything was finished. And then China told us they can't agree to things that they already agreed on. All right, and that's okay. So I said, that's okay. We're going to put tariffs on, 25% on $250 billion. Now we have another $325 billion left, and if we don't make a deal, we're going to put a tariff on that too. And the United States is making more money than they've ever made, ever before from China. I'd like to make a deal, but we'll see what happens. But I can tell you, as much as I'd like to, China wishes they had that deal to do over again, because what they did was wrong. You can't renegotiate a deal. We had a deal that was done, and they wanted to renegotiate. You can't do that.
Mr. President, we know that the president is invited you to Poland again.
Right.
Are you going to?
I think I will. We haven't picked a date, but we will. I just had an incredible time. That speech was special from the standpoint of the people of Poland, and I know it was considered a very important speech. You people even gave me very high marks in that speech. I could say it, but I don't want to say it, but some people said it was the best speech ever made by a president in Europe. But I did not say that. I'm just quoting other people. But it was a great day. The two folks, you treated us so great. I'll never forget it. We won't forget our trip to Poland. Very, very tremendous, special people.
How concerned are you about backsliding on democracy in Poland?
Quiet. Go ahead.
Mr. President, how concerned are you about backsliding on democracy in Poland, and will that be a...
I'm not concerned. I know the president very well. I know the people and the leadership of Poland very well. I'm not concerned at all. By the way, Poland is doing so well, and they know if they do backslide, they won't be doing well like they're doing right now. They've probably never done better economically. They're like us. The U.S. has never done better economically than we're doing right now. They don't want to backslide. They won't backslide. And besides that, they owe us a lot of money because they're buying a lot of things, right? So that's important. So they have to do well. We have to make sure they do well. We're very, very happy with Poland. You may want to say something about that.
Romana, someone cheated you. Sorry. Someone cheated you. There is no problems with democracy in Poland, really. Everything is excellent.
That's what I hear. Okay?
President Trump,
Yes.
the base that Poland says they want to build, is this permanent? Is this meant to house a permanent U.S. presence or not?
This would be certainly a statement that the U.S. would be making. I don't talk about permanence or non-permanence, but this would be a statement that the U.S. is making. Steve, go ahead, please.
Well, how many troops are you talking about?
Well, they're talking about 2,000 troops, but we'd be taking them out of Germany or would be moving them from another location. There would be no additional troops to Europe. We'd be moving them from another location. As you know, we have 52,000 troops in Germany, and Germany is not living up to what they're supposed to be doing with respect to NATO, and Poland is. I have to congratulate you. Thank you very much. But Poland is paying the max. The max will be raised. I raised over $100 billion last year from countries that were not paying, and it wasn't fair to the United States. So they put up over $100 billion more. But as you know, Germany's at 1%, they should be at 2%, and they're not getting there fast. We have 52,000 troops in Germany. We've had them there for a long, long time. So we'd be probably moving a certain number of troops to Poland if we agree to do it. Poland's going to build a phenomenal facility in a very good location.
So you're not totally convinced that you want to do this?
We haven't totally made up a decision, no. We haven't finalized anything, but the facility itself would be world class.
Would you like this facility to be named Fort Trump?
Well, that's up to them. I have nothing to do with naming it Fort Trump. That's all I need, Fort Trump. You people would have a field day with that, right? No, that's up to them. They can name it whatever they want. Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing us to ask
Thank
questions.
you.
Can you comment about your speech in Poland was brilliant, so
Thank you
very much.
Did everybody hear that? No. Thank you.
Can you, open question, can you comment about the energy cooperation? I understand that there is...
So energy is a tremendous asset that we have. Since I'm president, we became the largest energy producer in the world. And we now are shipping a lot of energy offshore and to different countries. Vietnam just made a tremendous purchase of coal from West Virginia. We're a tremendous energy producer now in all forms of energy. And it's actually within a year, especially if I get certain pipelines built, it won't even be close. We'll be double what other countries are. It used to be Saudi Arabia and Russia. Now it's United States, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. So we've made tremendous strides. Poland is buying a lot of LNG. It's going to buy billions and billions of dollars.
Initiative, Mr. President.
That's right.
Mr. President, will you use sanctions to block Nord Stream 2, the pipeline from Germany to Russia?
Well, we're looking at it. Look, people have a right to do what they want to do. I think it's something that I've been looking at and I'm thinking about, and I'm the one that brought up the pipeline problem, where you have Russia giving a tremendous percentage of energy. This gas is going into Germany. And I say, how can you do that? So we're protecting Germany from Russia, and Russia is getting billions and billions of dollars of money from Germany. I'm the one that brought up the problem. With that being said, I hope they get along, but Russia's paying 1%, as I said. They're not paying 2%. They should be paying much more. Germany. That Germany is paying 1%. They should be paying 2%. They should really be paying more than that. But we'll see how that works out. No, I think this. We have something much better. We have tremendous LNG, liquefied natural gas, and a lot of the European countries are wanting it, including yourselves. I mean, tremendous amounts are being sold to different places all over the world, but also to Europe. And I think that's really the way. If they want to spend a tremendous amount of money, I do think this, and I would say hopefully nothing will happen, nothing negative. Hopefully we're going to have a great relationship with Russia, great relationship with China and with Germany and everybody else. But I do think that Germany is putting themselves at a tremendous disadvantage when 50, 60, or even 70% of their energy is being supplied by Russia. I don't know how you can do that.
The power to block the pipeline. You can just
Well, Germany, no, let me explain it differently. Germany has the power to block it. You know how they block it? By not buying it. I mean, Germany made a decision to buy a tremendous percentage of their energy from Russia. Germany, whether they should be doing that or not, they're the ones that have the power to block it. They shouldn't buy it. Or if they want to, they can. But that's really a decision of Germany. I'm not saying that I would be in favor. I think the German people aren't very happy about it because it really makes Germany a hostage of Russia if things ever happened that were bad. Hopefully that will never be happened. Okay, go ahead.
Your reaction to the comments by Iran. Rouhani is saying Iran will not start a war, but will defend itself.
Well, I would think they would, sure. I would think they would. I hope they defend themselves. I would think they would defend themselves. Iran is not the same country. When I became president, Iran was a terror all over the world. They had just made this horrible deal for the United States, the Iran nuclear deal. And I became president and I terminated the deal, and Iran now is in chaos. It's got a lot of problems. I don't want them to be that way, but we're stopping their oil. We're stopping a lot of different things. We just stopped 2 weeks ago the steel and metals, all forms of metals. And as you know, they have tremendous inflation. They have a lot of problems. I don't want them to have problems. The problem could be solved, but you know what they have to do. And they didn't do it properly. And the deal that President Obama made was a horrible deal. It was a horrible deal. $150 billion, $1.8 billion in cash. It was a horrible deal. And I terminated the deal. Very nicely, I terminated the deal. Since I terminated that deal, Iran is not the same country. But with all of it being said, hopefully we'll be able to get along with Iran. If we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's great too.
Mr. President, a question on Venezuela, please. Just a question on Venezuela, please.
Venezuela is obviously in flux. It's doing unbelievably badly. This was, Mr. President, one of the richest countries, had tremendous oil, tremendous everything. It just shows you when you have a bad system. It became a socialistic system or worse, and now people don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have anything. It's a very sad thing. We're watching Venezuela very closely.
You tweeted that Russia had told you that they were taking out a large part of their military. Russia has denied that.
Well, let's just see who's right. You know what you're going to do? You're going to see in the end who's right, okay?
What do you know at this point?
You just watch it, okay? And we'll see who's right.
Sir, are you in close?
Ultimately, I'm always right.
Sir, are you in close?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you very much. It seems that you established great cooperation with
I'll be meeting with Putin at the G20. I'll be meeting with President Xi at the G20. I'll be meeting with many of the leaders at the G20.
Are you going to have a lot of people in the room with you, national security officials?
Well, it's probably easier because you people are so untrusting. So it's probably better if would you like to be in the room? Okay, would you like to be? I can imagine you would be. I think it's probably easier if we have people in the room because you people don't trust anything. Go ahead.
Mr. President, you established great cooperation with President Andrzej Duda. Can you comment about the program of First Ladies? They've been a great
Well, the First Ladies know each other. They get along with each other. They're going out to lunch right after this. Would you like to say something?
It is great to have them here again in the Oval Office and in the White House. And I'm looking forward to talking with Mrs. Duda about the children, what they're facing in our country, what they're facing in Poland, as we did the first time, and we will continue to do so.
Mr. President, when do you fulfill your promise to remove visa requirement for the Poles?
We're looking at that, actually. We're looking at that. That's the kind of a relationship we have with Poland. We are looking very strongly at visa requirements with respect to Poland. We'll know pretty soon.
Mr. President,
something could happen.
We'll talk about it during the press conference, but today a very important agreement between our governments was signed. Very important for this
step
visa regime.
Big step.
Mr. President, can you say what your measurement for the success of your deal with Mexico would be? How will you know if the deal is working?
Well, because our country has been so successful over the last 2.5 years, it's been incredible. Our GDP numbers, our production numbers, our manufacturing employment numbers. We have the most people working in our country than we've ever had. We're almost up to 160 million people. We've never been close. And because the United States has become so successful in terms of its economic and what it means, the economy of the United States, tremendous numbers of people are trying to come into our country. And I'm saying you can't do that. You have to come in legally, and you have to come in through merit. Now, a lot of things are happening, but Mexico stepped up to the plate. Perhaps it was because of the tariffs. I would say perhaps being defined as 99%. But that doesn't matter, because the president of Mexico and I have a very, very excellent relationship. We spoke. His people were here for 2.5, 3 days, working intensively on the agreement. And I think it's going to mean a lot fewer people coming up. You just can't crash our borders like this. Mexico has very, very strong immigration laws. We have the worst immigration laws, the dumbest laws anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, there's nothing close. But Mexico's laws are as strong as they can be. Now, Mexico's moving 6,000 troops to their southern border. That's a lot of troops. That's a lot more. We never even heard of a number like that. That's a lot of troops, but that's what they want to do, because they want to produce. I think Mexico really wants to produce. If Mexico does a great job, then you're not going to have very many people coming up. If they don't, then we have phase 2. Phase 2 is very tough, but I think they're going to do a good job. Now, with all of that being said, if the Democrats got together with me for 15 minutes, we could wipe out the loopholes, and we wouldn't need anything from anybody. But right now, Mexico is helping us much more on immigration than the Democrats in the U.S.
What is phase 2, sir? What is phase 2?
Phase 2 is a much tougher phase. Much tougher.
We know we have a special surprise for President Duda, F-35 flyover over the White House.
I do.
Can you elaborate a little more?
Well, at 1:55, we're going to have the world's greatest fighter jet, most advanced plane probably anywhere in the world, beyond fighter jet, most advanced plane. And at 1:55 to 2 o'clock, we have to hurry because we have to make it, so we'll end with this question. We're going to have 2 super F-35s flying at a great rate of speed, and then they're doing a second flyback, and I think they're going to go straight up. So they're going to put on a very small show for us, but it's going to be something. And we're doing that because Poland has ordered 32 or 35 brand new F-35s at the highest level, and the latest model. And I congratulate you on that. That means you have good taste.
Mr. President, where does your respect for Poland come from, other than your visit to Poland?
Well, because the United States has a tremendous Polish population. They were very much in favor. They liked me, and I liked them, and a lot of them voted for Trump. And I've always loved the Polish people, and I've always respected the Polish people. They're very, very hardworking, and they're smart. And they love their country, and they love our country, too. So I'm always in favor of Poland. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody. This way. Start moving this way.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, you've been listening to President Trump from the Oval Office covering a range of issues as he sits there alongside the Polish President Andrzej Duda. I want to bring in Caitlin Collins at the White House, and we have Dana Bash here with me in studio. President Trump spoke about invoking executive privilege. Let's listen.
Well, I think that, and I'm not overly involved in that, that's really a legal matter, but I think when you have a census and you're not allowed to talk about whether or not somebody's a citizen or not, that doesn't sound so good to me. Can you imagine you send out a census and you're not allowed to say whether or not a person's an American citizen? In Poland, they'd say they're either Polish or they're not, right? So I don't want to get you into this battle, but it's ridiculous. I think it's totally ridiculous that we would have a census without asking. But the Supreme Court is going to be ruling on it soon. I think when a census goes out, you should find out whether or not, and you have the right to ask whether or not somebody is a citizen of the United States. So
A controversial decision there because it is not a citizenship poll, it is a population poll, and some critics say that this would dissuade some people from being counted. But Caitlin, there were a number of other things. He said that he's going to be meeting with Vladimir Putin at the G20. We did expect that, but he's confirming that. He also took on a report that internal polls from his own campaign showed that he was struggling in many states that he needed to win. What did you think about what you heard from the Oval Office?
Yeah, as first off the bat, regarding the polling, the president denied that. And in fact, he said the opposite of what our reporting has showed us, Brianna, and that's that actually an internal poll conducted by the president's re-election effort actually showed that he was lagging in several key states, falling behind people like Joe Biden, and that when the president was briefed on that poll, it made him angry. Now, the president denied that that poll exists. He said that the polls that show him lagging behind are fake, and he said that every poll, that every state that they've polled internally at the Trump campaign actually shows him ahead. Now, we just know that's not true based on what our sources, people who are familiar with these internal polls at the Trump campaign, have told us, which they've downplayed the numbers and they've said we're so far away from the election it's not a big deal, but the president there is outright denying that they even exist. Now, of course, also speaking about that meeting with President Putin, something that the Russians, we should note, have not confirmed. The president said they will be meeting at the G20 summit in Japan later this month. And then he turned to reporters and seemed to jokingly ask if they wanted to be in the room for that meeting. Because, of course, Brianna, the president has a history of meeting with President Putin at times with no staffers in the room, with just interpreters in the room, or the report that the president once took the interpreter's notes and instructed the interpreter not to disclose what the two leaders had discussed. So the president was saying there that reporters don't trust anything and that maybe they should be brought into the room for his upcoming meeting with the Russian president, though it's unclear if he's joking or if he's actually going to bring reporters in the room for that meeting. Of course, one of the biggest disputes of the day is over this question that was added to the census, the citizenship question, and whether or not why it was added. That's what Democrats want to know, the motive behind that. But the president there seemed to be condoning adding that question to the census, saying he thinks it's ridiculous to not ask if someone is a U.S. citizen when they were filling out that census. Of course, Democrats will take problem with that because they say that adding that question actually suppresses the people who will come out and say that, yes, they're living in the United States, because they don't want to have to admit if they're living here illegally. Then it will affect federal resources and, of course, redistricting when it comes to representation in Congress. But the president there seemed to give his endorsement to that question. But I should note, he said he's not overly involved in the process because it's, quote, a legal matter.
Yeah, and obviously some of those things with the suppression would happen, but Dana, the issue to him, he actually seems to be condoning the idea of knowing who's a citizen and who is not, even though this information is not supposed to be shared. That's not what someone taking the census would believe if they were filling out that question.
Absolutely. It is something that we have not seen before, and that is why the Supreme Court is going to have to decide it. You know, involved or not, he has made his views extremely clear before, and obviously even more so just now, what we heard from him, which is you should have to say whether you're a citizen of this country. So, you know what? That's why there is a third branch of government, and the judiciary, the Supreme Court, will decide.
This was, I would say, a very truth-challenged appearance that he would make. Everything from this report about the polls, which, as Caitlin said, just goes in the face of what we know through our reporting, and also just through common sense, where he's saying that they're winning in every state. That would defy even expectations of what would just be normal at this point in time. But let's also talk about, he's sitting there with President Duda, a appearance that he is affording this leader of Poland that there's no way George W. Bush or Barack Obama would afford this president that appearance, considering the state of democratic backsliding that we've seen in Poland. You've seen Poland take state-run media and turn it into a mouthpiece, into propaganda. They have forced a retirement age of the Supreme Court lower in an attempt to, not an attempt, to purge the Supreme Court. And then in the face of protests here, somewhat recently over the past year, they have prosecuted peaceful protesters and allowed them to be physically injured without recourse. He says they won't backslide. I mean, they are backsliding.
They are. I mean, first of all, what do you expect the leader of Poland to say, except what he said? He said, there's no problem with democracy in Poland. There's no gambling in in Las Vegas. I mean, it is just not believable on its face. But to the important point that you brought up, Brianna, about the president, having the leader of Poland, and this is the second visit that he and his wife have made to the U.S. and they're not only getting this Oval Office meeting with the cameras in there and that the money shot, if you will. There apparently, our reporting is that there could be F-35 flyovers in his honor. That's also an economic decision because the U.S. is hoping that Poland will buy some of those planes from America. But having said all that, what is interesting about Poland is that it's an example of how complicated so many of these relationships really are. Because at the same time, you're right, Democratic and Republican predecessors would make very clear, maybe even sitting next to them, no, that's not how things should be done. There should be, in a democracy where we're doing deals like this, there should be a free press. There should be an independent judiciary. That's what most of Donald Trump's predecessors would do. Take the opportunity to show him how it's done. He didn't do that. But at the same time, Poland is, not exactly cozy with Russia. And America, the Trump administration, is hoping to get a base, working on getting a base in Poland because of that. And so it's a classic example of how complicated so many of these relationships are in terms of where they are geographically, in terms of their relationships with other adversaries. But the notion of backsliding on democracy, that should just be a given for a U.S. president. At least historically speaking, it has been.
Yeah, really needed a fact check there. Thank you, Dana Bash, Caitlin Collins. And on the Hill,